All right, when I covered chapter 2 of Philippians, Paul's letter to the church in Philippi, there was this little phrase, fear and trembling, right? And Paul says to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And I kind of skimmed over it. I said he's talking about awe and like this response, and that's true. But I realized I missed an opportunity to explain something that I think might be helpful. The question when I read this right away is like, whoa, all of a sudden, am I supposed to be afraid of God? Am I supposed to tremble, right? Is that what he's saying here, or tremble before him, right? Like, what is the idea? What's the emotion? What is Paul getting at here? If you look at the context of the whole thing, you step back and read the letter as a whole, he's super joyful. He's super grateful. He's super happy. It's positive. It's upbeat. And then all of a sudden he's like, so get to work with fear and trembling. That for you and I should raise a little flag and ring a little bell. Like, whoa, maybe there's something else going on here, because this seems very inconsistent with his tone. And he is getting at something different here. This word, this phrase, fear and trembling, is an idiom. If you're not familiar with what an idiom is, it's like a phrase that means something in a certain culture. So if I were to say I was going to kick the bucket, you would know that that means I'm going to die soon. Now, hopefully I'm not going to, but if I'm writing a letter to you today, you'll get it, right? If someone else is reading the letter that's translated into their language 2,000 years from now, they're going to read it and be like, whoa, what bucket? And whose bucket? And why did he kick it? And why he's not around anymore after kicking this bucket? They have no idea what's going on. That's the idea of an idiom here. To do something with fear and trembling does have this idea of awe and response, but it's a very positive response, and it's almost like a joyful awe. Paul uses this when he writes his letter to the church in Corinth. He talks about how Titus showed up, and Titus was his little buddy. He sent him to Corinth. He was happy. He was refreshed. He was encouraged. And it's like, because you received him with fear and trembling. Now, unless Titus is on a power trip and wants everyone to be afraid of him, that's not what he means. What he's saying is like, they were thrilled. Like, they were in awe that he came to be with them and to help them. And so they listened to what he said. There's another really great example of this phrase in the book of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah is recording the words of God, and this is part of a bigger story, a bigger complicated story, and so I don't want to take it out of context, but I do want you to see how the word is used. Jeremiah was written in Hebrew, Paul wrote in Greek, but Paul was Jewish, and so he thought with a Jewish brain. He spoke Hebrew, and this would have been a Hebrew idiom translated into Greek. All right, so this is in Jeremiah. He says this is God speaking. He says, "It will be to me a name of joy and praise and glory before all the nations of the earth, which will hear of all the good that I do for them, and they will be frightened and tremble." It's the phrase fear and trembling. Why? Because of all the good and all the peace that I make for it. Now, how can you be afraid and tremble and have peace at the same time, right? Unless he's using an idiom, that doesn't make any sense. Now, if he's talking about having a response of awe that's super positive, right, because of all the good that's being done for them, because of all the peace that they're going to have, it makes a little bit more sense. So, all that to say, often when something seems out of sync, a lot of times it is, and a lot of times there's something else going on there. So I would love for you and I to develop the habit of flagging things. Like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. I think I need to dig a little deeper. I think I need to ask someone, maybe do some research. But this is a great example of something that's happening beneath the surface that you miss if you just fly right over it and you're just like, oh, so we're supposed to be afraid and tremble. You know, God wants us to be terrified of him. And that's not the idea. So this is a bonus video. If you watched it, extra points to you, 10,000 extra points, extra credit. Great job. Next up is day 3, chapter 3. Stick with it.